Can you hear me okay? Yeah? Okay, good. So, let's say, I don't know if you're teaching in these situations or not, but let's say, even if you're not, if you were teaching in one of these two situations. One, you're teaching teenagers who are, studying English at school, but finding it a bit difficult to communicate, okay? That's one kind of. And then, or you were teaching university students or adults who have studied for years, but still can't really communicate very well, okay? If you're teaching in one of those kind of situations, what should we do? What can we do? Help. What can we do? Yeah.
Differentiated level questions.
Okay, so grading the language according to that level. Yes?
Like lower level questions and then...
Okay, so gradually becoming... So sequencing the language, basically. Yes? Okay, sure. So we need to be careful about pitching it at the right level and building from that. Okay, fine. What else do you think would be important? Yeah, go ahead.
Make sure that the student understands the questions we are asking.
Okay.
We have to ask comprehension checking questions
about
sure. The question itself.
Absolutely. Okay, fine. So, yeah, we need to be sure that not going over their heads, and comprehension checking is important. I agree. Okay, anything else?
The language to communicate.
Sorry?
The language to communicate with.
Okay, so what kind of language? I mean English, but I mean, what kind of language targets?
It depends on the topic.
Okay. Well, you say it depends on the topic. So it's a topic which is important. You think so?
Maybe. Depends
Okay.
on the course.
It depends on the course, doesn't it? Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think that there's an argument with some classes to have topic-based and other classes to have more pattern-based. It depends. Okay? And of course, we can integrate them. But usually, even when we integrate them, there's usually something which is the basis for our decision-making in terms of the syllabus for a particular course. Okay, obviously, when we're teaching in those kind of situations, we need to simplify the language. We need to sort of start from where the students are. I would consider, I suppose, that one key concept which I think we need to consider is familiarity. Familiarity, what do you think I mean by familiarity? Familiarity with, like if you're teaching teenagers or university or adults who really are struggling to communicate, or maybe have some, passive knowledge, but they're not kind of using it very actively, somehow we need to make what we're teaching feel familiar. What do you think I mean by familiarity with what? Well, familiarity with their life experiences. So we need a lot of personalization. We need to connect it with their real world, with their daily life, with their kind of real feelings. But I think also we need to connect it with the language they know. In other words, what they're familiar with in terms of learning. So if, for example, they've been learning a lot of grammar, then, yeah, we'll connect it with that, but just do it differently. If they've been learning a lot of, having a lot of free discussion with topics, okay, we'll connect it with that, but do it maybe differently or maybe not. But it's obviously not, whatever they've been doing in some way perhaps hasn't worked for them. Or maybe they just haven't got the confidence yet, or maybe they're just not motivated enough and not enjoying it enough. But whatever, we need to make it feel familiar. One of the things I've tried to do in Communicate is root it in a kind of conventional syllabus, but do it differently. What I mean by that is it has, for example, it has a grammar sequence. Not only a grammar sequence, we'll come on to that, but it has a grammar sequence. But, rather than conventional grammar sequences, which maybe are used in secondary schools in various countries in East Asia, and they're not all that different from each other, the levels vary. But I've changed the sequence around a bit, but only when it makes it more communicative. For example, in many conventional syllabuses, you will see, in East Asia, you will see, for example, the present simple taught before the present continuous, for example, okay? But from a communicative point of view, I would argue that's not a good way to do it. Because if you think about it, for example, what are you doing I'm playing tennis is much easier than what do you usually do on Sunday afternoon. It's easier, but not only that, it gives you the ability to communicate, because what are you doing? I'm playing tennis can easily be taken a step up. What are you doing tomorrow? I'm playing tennis. Now we can very simply talk about the future without too much fuss. Okay, so so the sequence needs to be thought about in terms of, does it enable a student to communicate? Okay, another example would be this. Very often certain structures are taught in isolation from each other. For example, if you take a pattern like, you might have a unit of a book might focus on like. What do you like? Or do you like this or that kind of thing? Or what kind of movies do you like? Okay, fine. But why not, instead of doing something like that, why not actually, the same time you're introducing perhaps introduce adjectives at the same time? Why? Why would we need to introduce adjectives at the same time as like?
Describe why you like.
Because then we can give reasons, and then we can, for example, what do you think? Do you like soul? Yes, I do. Why? It's exciting, it's interesting, it's boring. Well, no, whatever. But it's like these kind of simple things. Syllabuses can be adjusted, like conventional syllabuses can be. Of course, I'm sure you do many of these things anyway. But the point is to have, when we're designing the syllabus for a course, we need to think about, well, okay, let's make it familiar. Let's make it familiar. Let's have a familiar, fairly conventional syllabus, but let's root it in that, but then change it when we think there's a good reason to change it, when it makes things more communicative. Let me just show you a little bit about the book first. You'll see that there's two courses here, Communicate and Motivate. And you'll see the style is a bit different. The Communicate is... Motivate is perhaps a bit more mature than Communicate, because the level is higher, okay? And you see the artwork and design is a little bit more mature. But let me tell you, before we go into I don't want to just give you lots of pictures of a book. Let's do a puzzle, okay? Here we are. Ears, American, married, glasses, gorillas. Now, there's a puzzle for you. Can anybody see the connection, the answer? Any creative ideas?
All the first letters are capitalized.
What's that?
All the first letters are capitalized.
All the first letters are capitalized. Okay. Yeah. Okay, fine. Anything else?
They all have an A in them?
They all have an A in them. You're right, they do. Anything else? I'll give you a hint. How many of you are gorillas? How many of you are gorillas? How many? So none of. Okay, so none of you are gorillas. And how? And?
All of us have ears.
All of us. Okay. We hope. And how many of you are American? Put up your hand. So, how do we say that? So, how many of you? So, what's my language target?
All, some.
Yeah, there you go. All of us, most of us, some of us, none of us, whatever it might be. Now, you notice that in this way, by introducing a language target through a puzzle, and there are many puzzles which are appropriate for many different language targets, we don't have to explain the language target. Because, in a conventional syllabus, that would be taught or explained, okay? But we can say, okay, this is an important pattern. This is something we want the students to be able to know and to use, okay? But instead of explaining it, we just create a situation where they're trying to express themselves. Gets back to Vygotsky. Those of you familiar with Vygotsky know one of the things he said, but he said it in Russian, which is a bit different from what I'm going to say. He said that we don't learn languages in order to communicate. Do you know what he said? He said, we try to communicate and so we learn languages. And this is behind communicate. Okay, so you can see that the methodology is essentially constructivist. Okay, and it's actually, from many points of view, the idea is that when we introduce a language target, the way we introduce it is crucial. Okay, we can introduce a boring language target, an exciting language target. That's not, of course, that's helpful if it's exciting, but more important is the way we introduce it. Do the students feel, yes, that's what I was trying to say, or that's what I was searching for, or that was what I was trying to understand, even. But and then when they sort of. So the warm-up, the way we lead into a dialogue is crucial. Let me, this is just an example. You know, some people say that this kind of methodology, which is obviously student-centered, that student-centered methods take too long. It takes a few minutes. It takes a few minutes, but it makes all the difference in the world. Because then the students feel they're not just learning what the teacher wants to teach them, but what they are searching for.